During week 179 of Brada's Branded Thoughts and from the Hawkeye of the Storm, we'll talk about the upcoming basketball season, our official preview for men's hoops, and also, is Iowa football derailing? We'll talk about it coming up during week 179 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. This is from the Hawkeye of the Storm.
Are you a Hawkeye fan living in Story County? Well, if you are, great. If not, we've still got you covered. Introducing From the Hawkeye of the Storm, your source for original Iowa content from the Eye of the Storm, the Hawkeye of the Storm, Ames, Iowa. That's right. Our Hawkeye platform, hosted by StoryCounty.News, strives to offer a unique perspective that you won't find anywhere else. Despite living amid the sea of red that is Cyclone Country, we make it our aim to entertain and inform Hawkeye fans everywhere. From live programming following an Iowa athletic event to our on-demand podcast, Brada's Branded Thoughts, which you can access through YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Amazon, and more, our goal is to always offer cutting-edge black and gold content. In addition, catch our weekly college football picks throughout the season as you get prepped for the weekend ahead. And the great thing about all of our content is, it's all free. Join us regularly here at From the Hawkeye of the Storm, and be sure to subscribe to our sister channel, Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. That's Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football on YouTube, as we have teamed up with Mark Rogers and former Iowa football assistant coach Don Patterson to bring you live post-game shows after every Iowa football game. Watch, chat, and even call in to let your voice be heard each and every weekend this fall. Want to learn how you can further support us? Visit our video description on each and every YouTube video we publish, and then, of course, enjoy the content. It's From the Hawkeye of the Storm, hosted by StoryCounty.News, for the best Hawkeye content in the area.
Week number 179 of Brada's Branded Thoughts from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and I'll start off by acknowledging something. Usually when I record each week, I am kind of referring to notes throughout my recording session, if you will, and I'm going into this show today just going to speak my mind, not going to look at any notes. I'm just going to speak on what's on my mind right now, and specifically as it relates to Iowa football. And then, of course, we'll get into Iowa basketball and kind of my thoughts on the season ahead. But there's obviously a lot of frustration right now with this football team. 6-2, coming off another putrid performance offensively. The defense played fine. The defense is not the problem right now. I know the defense struggled for a time against Purdue, specifically against David Bell. But for the most part, this defense has been pretty much rock solid. The difference with these last two games defensively has been Iowa's not been able to force turnovers at the rate they were able to force them earlier in the year. I mean, think about Penn State, think about Maryland. I think those two games combined, if I'm not mistaken, they forced 11 turnovers in two games. I'd have to look back at the Indiana-Iowa State games, but those were close probably to double digits when you add the two turnover numbers together. I know Iowa picked off Penix several times. They picked off Purdy several times. Also recovered a fumble against Iowa State. So Iowa's finally starting to, I don't want to say hit a wall as far as forcing turnovers, and that was bound to happen. We've talked about how sustainable high volume of turnovers is. I still believe that this is a team that's going to continue to force a high amount of turnovers. Just because they didn't against Wisconsin, against Purdue, doesn't mean anything moving forward. I could see, this defense forcing several on Saturday against Northwestern. Certainly that would help Iowa's cause. But what these last 2 weeks have done is expose an offense that has not been good for years, okay, and expose the play calling, which has not been good since Brian's been here as the offensive coordinator. There have been some defenders of Brian this week through social media and other outlets that have basically said, well, look, this is Kirk's offense. He's still running it. Brian, you can't blame Brian for what's happening here because the numbers were bad before Brian. My simple response to that is, why is Brian the OC if he has no responsibility with what's happening here? I mean, he's been the coordinator here for 5 years? Why is he the offensive coordinator? Like, why? Besides the fact that he's Kirk's son, and I know that's the main reason why he was hired, right? I mean, as far as his LinkedIn resume, if you will, There were no qualifications to be an offensive coordinator in the Big Ten other than his last name. That's a fact. Now, anybody wants to argue that, you can argue that, but that's a fact. But what was the point of hiring Brian if it wasn't to make the defense better? And the simple question when you begin any new job or career is, are you performing at the level that is required? Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Iowa has been like dead last in the offensive categories throughout the entire year. And if you look back at the rest of his tenure, they've been in the lower quarter of the Big Ten basically every year. He's not performing as the offensive coordinator the way he needs to perform now. If Kirk is not giving Brian the reins to the offense, which is another theory people have that, well, Brian's got to be given the reins, he wants to do more. What are we basing that off of? We're basing that off of hope and speculation. He's the offensive coordinator. Right now, the offense blows. Okay? The offense is terrible. Okay? Not blaming the players. I'm blaming the coaching staff. It ultimately does fall back on Kirk Ferentz. He is the head coach, but right now, the offense is struggling, so Brian's got to be the guy that's being examined, and he should be okay with that. Like, that's the type of responsibility you take on when you accept the offensive coordinator position at a Big Ten school. Now, granted, I acknowledge the fact that the offenses were not typically great under Ken O'Keefe. They were not very good under Greg Davis. The difference is I think they're worse now. And I will be going back this week. I've not had a chance to do it yet, but I will be going back this week and looking at Iowa's total offense as far as rankings. I don't want to look at just numbers because obviously college football has changed over the course of 23 years in points and how teams play. So I'm going to look at rankings because if you're Iowa, you've got to, if you want a chance at competing for championships every year, which Iowa does not do, you've got to be able to keep with the times, which we know Iowa doesn't do offensively. And even if you don't keep with the style of play that is typically accepted in college football today, you've got to be able to find a way to put points on the board, get yards up. And Iowa was doing that earlier this year by means of the defense, but that is not good enough. Clearly, you've got to be able to produce points on the offensive side of things. Iowa has mastered the ability to perfect kicking, punting, special teams, again, creating turnovers, strong secondary. The defensive line is not playing great right now. You know, it's not a unit with a ton of athleticism. That's a concern moving forward. I don't know on that line who's going to emerge as a big-time playmaker off the edge next year. I have no idea. That would be a concern of mine right now. To me, if I'm Iowa going into the offseason, I'm looking for a edge rusher in the transfer portal, and certainly those aren't easy to come by. You don't get an A.J. Epinesa or Anthony Nelson or Drew Rod every year, but they have nobody like that right now, and that's tough. I mean, we're starting to see the results of that. Guys like Mertz, guys like O'Connell, they're able to sit back there in the pocket and basically do whatever they want and have all the time in the world to do it. The stunt moves, the stunt plays that were working earlier in the year against Iowa State, even against Maryland at times, those are not working anymore. Teams have too much tape now, and they're shutting it down. But ultimately, again, it comes back to the offense. When you can't get more than one first down in the entire first half, when you're getting skunked 20-0 at halftime as the number 9 team in the country, which we all know was a farce, that's a disgrace. And I know Kirk criticized somebody, I don't know if it was somebody in the media or someone that wrote an article in a newspaper earlier this season because this journalist, I guess, called a player a disgrace. I'm not calling a player a disgrace, but I'm saying that is disgraceful. And if the coaching staff, if Kirk wants to not deny that, that's on him. Because losing to Wisconsin 20-0, Wisconsin team that doesn't have a very good offense itself. I mean, let's be honest, the running game was good, but Graham Mertz is probably lower quarter of not only the Big Ten, but probably the Big Ten West. I mean, I could probably name, 4 or 5 other quarterbacks who are better than him, not being Petrus, but 4 or 5 others. I mean, I'd take Tanner Morgan, Adrian Martinez. The kid from Northwestern might be a toss-up, but certainly I'd take O'Connell. The Illinois quarterback situation is also precarious. But I guess what I'm saying is this was not a great Wisconsin offense, and Iowa made the Wisconsin offense looked pretty darn good. And again, you can say, well, the defense should have done more to force turnovers. When you are an offense that can't stay on the field, you are doing your defense such a disservice. This defense was on the field all day long. Iowa's offense and special teams turned it over 3 times in its own red zone, 2 of which were offensive turnovers, 1 of which was Max Cooper muffing a punt. I feel sorry for Max. Hasn't played basically all year, comes in for Charlie Jones and muffs a punt. I feel bad for the kid. But it's still a turnover. It can't happen. And so that's disappointing. But, again, this offense has not improved. I mean, you look back to week 1 against Indiana, it was poor. We had a big run from Tyler Goodson that kind of overshadowed things early in that game. And then the defense went to work with a couple pick sixes from Riley Moss. They only scored 34 points. So take away the run, take away the 2 pick sixes, the offense put together 13 points. And again, consistently throughout this season, including that first game, the defense has put the offense in these positions to score. Iowa State, same thing. We have the scoop and score from Jack Campbell. You had a nice pick from Hankins in a return. You had another pick from Hankins. You had a pick from I think there was another pick in that game, wasn't there? You get the 2 Hankins picks. I'm missing somebody. Somebody had a pick in that game, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But the point is the defense is they've consistently gotten interceptions, fumble recoveries, etc., and forced them at huge times. I mean, think about the Colorado State game. Remember that fumble by, I believe it was Centeo, inside their own red zone? And I don't even remember, did Iowa's offense get a touchdown on that play or that following drive? I don't remember. But, man, Iowa's defense was bailing the offense out so much early on, and I wonder if this defense has sort of ran out of gas. I mean, it's still playing incredibly hard. It's amazing from start to finish during the game on Saturday. This defense just does not let up, and you're going up against a tough offensive line. You're going up against an Allen kid who's 17 years old, looks like a poor man's Derrick Henry. Malusi was running the ball well, but Iowa's defense just kept giving Iowa a chance to get back in the game, and Iowa just refused to take it. You may have heard during my postgame with Don Patterson over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football, my issues with play calling. You come out of the first play of the game, you come out with an empty set against Wisconsin on 1st and 10. I mean, there's just no explanation for that, and Kirk knows better than that. I mean, are we fooling ourselves here? To come out empty with nobody in the backfield, with a quarterback who can't run on 1st and 10 to start the game? I mean, you'd have to think Jim Leonard for Wisconsin, their DC, was just salivating when he saw that. I was not as critical about the 4th and 1 decision to run the fullback because, honestly, what other plays have worked in short yardage situations? Though, I mean, I know Iowa's failed on 2 quarterback sneaks against Purdue. They failed now on 2 fullback dives against Wisconsin back-to-back. And I get it. They're not very unique calls. They're not creative calls, but I'm not an OC. I just don't know what other plays you have confidence in right now in any situation, let alone short yardage situation. But certainly what Don Patterson brought out is true. You have a 9-man front you're going up against there. Maybe you do a fake toss out to your fake handoff to your fullback, toss out to Tyler Goodson or Gavin Williams, and there's other things you can do. So I understand fans' frustration with that play and that call. Then you have the 4th down play before Petrus left the game for good on Saturday in the 4th quarter. It's like 4th and long. He throws the ball 20 feet out of bounds. I mean, what's the reasoning for that? That's on Spencer, but it's also on the coaching staff for not putting him in a better position to succeed. I mean, this is, everybody wants to blame the quarterback. I've talked about this in the past many a times. But, obviously QB development's not great here. I'm trying to figure out the reasoning behind a quarterback ever throwing the ball out of bounds on 4th down. Why not just throw the ball down the field and hope you get picked and it'd be the equivalent of a punt? That didn't make any sense. But again, Spencer's under duress every play. The offensive line can't block a soul right now. They've got 6 or 7 guys rotating in. You got Jack Plum, who's an upperclassman who's struggling at right tackle. Nick DeYoung, who's a 3rd-year guy struggling at right tackle. You've got Kyler Schott and Cody Ince, who've battled injuries, but they're both healthy now, struggling. I mean, not playing as bad as the tackles are, but those guys are struggling. I give Tyler Linderbaum a ton of credit, man. That kid just plays his tail off. He will be a first-round draft pick next year. But the offense is a problem, and I think fans, we all ignored it earlier in the year because of the record because this defense continued to put the offense in positions to succeed, and we assumed, well, at some point the offense will catch up. I don't know why we assume that. The offense hasn't caught up one time under Brian Ferentz. You have little tiny stretches like against Ohio State in 2017, like against USC in the Holiday Bowl in 2019, where the offense looks good, but it is not. It is never. They can never sustain any level of offensive aptitude. So, I'm not going to talk about position changes, staff changes right now because I just don't personally believe, and I know other coaching staffs will do this. Other fan bases want it. Some fans here in the Iowa fan base, I know, want Brian Ferentz canned. First of all, that's not going to happen. That's the first thing. Second thing is I don't think it should happen right now. I think if you're going to make decisions like that, they need to come after the season. And by that, I mean after bowl prep. I just don't believe in making a change right now unless there's something egregious, which you could argue the offense is egregiously bad. But I just don't think that's the right decision. And again, Kirk's not going to do that. I don't think Kirk's not going to fire his son regardless. I will be shocked if Brian Ferentz is not the offensive coordinator until Kirk retires. I'll be shocked. So there is that. Now, as far as what Iowa can do, what can Iowa do to mend its issues it's having? Again, we're talking play calling, we're talking offensive line production, we're talking quarterback play. Certainly people have criticized Spencer. Again, I've talked about some of my issues with the coaching staff over the years, not getting quarterbacks in a better position to succeed. Simple things like not teaching your quarterback how to slide properly, how to step up in the pocket. Certainly, you can't always teach mobility. So there's one area I would start. To me, if I'm Kirk, I would seriously look at least playing Alex Padilla for a series or two. It's got nothing to do with benching Spencer. And Spencer, you need to have that conversation with Spencer and say, look, this isn't your fault. We're struggling up front right now, and that's not your fault. But we believe Alex can bring something to help the situation, to remedy the situation. Maybe not even to remedy, but just to mend fences a bit. I mean, you're talking about an offense is not going to be great, but can you be decent enough to where you can beat Northwestern, Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska? Man, you should be able to figure out a way to get there. With as good as this defense is, you should be able to figure out a way to get there. And if you can get there, you've got a chance at winning the West. We've talked about that. They've still got an opportunity to win this division and win the conference. You win out. Wisconsin loses another game. Iowa's going to be the West representative. Now, I know Purdue's got the tiebreaker, but they will lose again. Purdue's going to lose again. If Wisconsin were to lose again, which I'm not sure is going to happen, but say they lose to Minnesota the last week and Iowa wins out, Iowa will be the representatives. So the season's not lost yet. But if I'm Kirk Ferentz, and I know he said during his press conference Tuesday that he hasn't even really thought about inserting Alex Padilla, I hope that's just coach speak, because you've got to at least put that on the table. Like, look, the offensive line isn't protecting Spencer. Alex, he showed during that last drive or second to last drive, whatever it was against Wisconsin, that he does have the ability to move his feet, and that might be enough to get him some time. I would consider that right now. I'm not benching Spencer. Okay, I want to make that clear. But I would consider at least getting Alex in there if he's the second string quarterback, which clearly he is. It's not Deuce Hogan, so we're not inserting Deuce. That narrative can die. Okay, Deuce is not playing. I mean, there's no reason to play Deuce right now when Alex is the second string guy and he's mobile. But that's got to be done, in my opinion. The offensive line, obviously, you can. Iowa really hasn't taken advantage of tight ends as much as I'd like in the blocking game. I know Lachey's been banged up a bit. They get Sam Laporta involved with the pass game a lot. But you're going to have to start chipping more. You're going to have to figure out a way to get, maybe a Gavin Williams, now that Ivory Kelly-Martin, we heard, is out for this coming game. Maybe he plays more and can develop. He's a bigger body, can be a better pass blocker and help out Spencer, give him some time and help out that offensive line. Maybe that's a solution. Certainly Potabom being in there more. Like if you'd come out the first play of the game against Wisconsin with Potabom in the shotgun, I'd have been fine with that, because at least Potabom gives you the appearance that, hey, maybe we will run, because he's shown to be a capable runner, but he's also a good blocker, pass blocker, run blocker. So I would have been okay with that. There are things you can do. Again, I'm no coach, I'm no offensive coordinator, but to me, these are things that I would hope Kirk Ferentz is talking about this week. And Kirk also made the comment yesterday that he's not been spending any more time with the offensive line than he normally would. I hope that's not true. George Barnett's a first-year guy. I don't think that means if you're Kirk and you spend more time than normal with the offensive line unit, I don't think that means you're micromanaging George. You're simply offering Coach Barnett some help because he's got his hands full right now. He's working with these guys every day, and we're not seeing a ton of improvement. That's just a fact. So I'd hope that Kirk is working with those guys more than normal. I will assume, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that was just coach speak, that he is working with that offensive line. But again, these are games coming up that Iowa can win without a great offense, but they've got to be able to protect Spencer to some degree. We haven't talked about Tyrone Tracy's brother going on social media and attacking the coaches. That's another distraction. That doesn't help the situation. Tyrone Tracy has dropped a lot of balls this year, so his struggles are on him. Okay, and Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, those guys have earned those reps. Clearly, they've made more out of their targets than Tyrone has, as has Sam Laporta. So that is a factor as well. So Iowa Northwestern this coming Saturday. If you want to hear my picks for the game, certainly tune in to From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tune in on Friday night where I make my weekly picks. It'll be my week 10. We're already week 10. Week 10 picks for college football, not only Iowa, Northwestern, but of course games across the college football landscape. Not going to preview it any more than that because, look, this is not a good Northwestern team. I know it's Patty Fitz. I know the guy knows how to beat Iowa, but this is a game Iowa should win by 30. They should. And I'm not going to be happy unless they win by 30. If they win by 5 or win by 10 or 15, they got to win by 30. This is not a good Northwestern team. This is a team that's getting blown out consistently by good to upper echelon teams. Iowa's got to take care of business on the road and get back on track with a win. Moving ahead to college basketball, can you believe we're here in November now? Iowa basketball is back. I know Iowa's got an exhibition this coming Friday against Slippery Rock, which will be on BTN Plus. A lot to unravel, a lot to unpack, and certainly we'll do that as we go through the early goings of the season. But I kind of wanted to take this opportunity to preview what we should expect from this team. Certainly, there have been speculations that Iowa may be an NIT team or worse. I still think this is a team that can make the tournament, and I'll tell you why. And it really comes back down to what Iowa didn't have last year or the year before. Despite some of the shooting woes that we may end up seeing, and I could easily see Iowa having issues shooting the basketball from outside this year. This team is more athletic and defensive-minded than I can remember an Iowa team being. Certainly, the Woodbury, Gasell, Clemens years, those were actually good defensive teams. But here's how I'd sum up Iowa basketball, and I've dogged on Iowa's defense for years because it has never really been great, although it was, again, better with Utah, Gasell, Woodbury, Utah, those guys. The reason why I would be more confident in this squad, you've got a guy like Joe Toussaint, who's a defensive dog. Keegan Murray's extremely athletic. Chris Murray, I'm assuming, is just as athletic as his brother or close. I know that Riley Mulvey is going to probably play this year, the 17-year-old. Maybe he's 18 now, but of course he reclassified to be a freshman this year in college. He was defensive-minded in high school. Josh Agundale, I don't know. I mean, we don't know about his defensive skills, but he is a bigger body, so he should be able to bang inside with guys like Kofi Coburn in the Big Ten. And then you just go on the list. Tony Perkins, he's more of a defensive guy. Aaron Eulis is athletic enough. They've got more athleticism this year. Certainly Jordan Bohannon, Connor McCaffery, those guys aren't the best defenders, aren't the most athletic. So you hope that if you're talking about best case scenario with this team, Connor McCaffery, Jordan Bohannon, Joe Toussaint, those guys can kind of be the leaders of this team and provide the leadership necessary on and off the court. And then you've got guys like Philip Rebracha, who's also an older guy. Hopefully can be I think Philip Rebracha I see as more of a versatile guy who's going to be able to defend at a good level, score at a good level, make threes, get rebounds while also being a leader. But I don't see him as just some breakout star. I don't see him being an all Big Ten guy. But I do think he can kind of provide what Iowa needs as far as a mix of everything on both ends of the court. And then you have those guys who can really be lockdown defenders. We mentioned Toussaint, Perkins, Keegan Murray. But again, somebody's got to be able to develop a three-point shot. So you hope that Chris Murray has improved from three. Patrick McCaffrey's more of a scorer. Can he improve from three? And then the two guards, Ulis and Perkins. Those are huge question marks from three because we really didn't see anything from three-point line from either of those guys last year. The probably biggest dark horse here to make a major impact for this team, and I'm not saying he's the difference maker, but he very well could be, and that is Peyton Sanford. 6'7", 6'8" out of Waukee. He talked about during some recent media availability that he struggled, especially early on after he got to Iowa, specifically with defense. That's no surprise. There's a learning curve there, and he mentioned being able to stay in front of people. Certainly that's a concern, but his ability to shoot the three could be huge. I mean, think back to what C.J. Frederick did when it was, of course, his redshirt freshman year, so a little bit different. He had the extra year to prepare, and certainly he dealt with injuries his true freshman year. But if Sanford can come in here and shoot threes consistently early, and we don't know if that'll happen, but if he can do that, that will be huge. They need three-point shooting right now. There's no question about it. So Sanford certainly would be my second guy behind Jordan Bohannon as far as guys who you'd hope can be consistent from three. This is a deep team already. Fran wants to play 12 or 13 guys, it sounds like. That sometimes has come back to bite Fran, in my opinion. But with this young team, I think that might be the best case scenario anyways. Does a Carter Kingsbury or Austin Ash get some time here and there? Maybe. And if the guys can shoot threes and be adequate on defense, which is a huge question mark, maybe they can get some time because, again, Iowa needs that shooting ability. Honestly, at this point, if you're Iowa, you're hoping that a guy like Ogundele, that a guy like Chris Murray can emerge because they need. I mean, I don't even know who the primary scorer on this team is. I mean, is it Keegan Murray? Everybody's assuming it's Keegan Murray. Maybe it is. I hope it is. I mean, that'd be great. I need to see it first. Keegan was obviously great last year, but he was also playing third or fourth fiddle on a team that featured guys like Garza, Wieskamp, and Frederick. So, I hope that Keegan is ready for that assignment. Jordan Bohannon certainly was up and down last year offensively. But boy, it'd be great if you could get, 9-10 points from a Rebracha and, 6-7 points a game from an Ogundele. And I mean, it's going to have to be spread out this year. The good news about the schedule, and I know fans don't like it, but the schedule is not murderer's row to start out with. You play the likes of Missouri, Kansas City, and Longwood, and we mentioned Slippery Rock in the exhibition. There's going to be plenty of time for Iowa to get its feet under them. Now, it would be nice if Iowa could have had a decent game mixed into those, 6 games to start out with that are against lower tier opponents, because then they have to go to Virginia. So it'd almost be nice if you could play Texas A&M. And maybe I don't know if Texas A&M is good this year, supposed to be good this year, but, just play a Power 5 school at home. I know that's tough to do at times scheduling-wise, but, I mean, certainly Iowa could have made it happen. Play one Power 5 opponent in between some of these other games and play them in Carver before you go on the road at Virginia. So hopefully Iowa gets out of that stretch undefeated. I mean, if they aren't undefeated heading into that Virginia game, well, I mean, again, expectations aren't high anyways, but certainly that will be concerning. No tournament game during the fall. We normally see a trip to Cancun or Alaska or wherever. No tournament game this year, or no tournament this year, I should say. And again, Slippery Rock this Friday, Longwood the coming Monday. Slippery Rock will be on BTN Plus. You need a subscription to watch that. Longwood will be on BTN. But again, my predictions for this coming season, I would have to say Keegan Murray is going to be the leading scorer. I'd have to go Philip Rebracha as the leading rebounder. Certainly, if Mulvey can develop more offensively, he's going to continue to see more time. And just physically, he's more of a true 5, so he can be a more dominant rebounder. Josh Ogundele's conditioning is going to be huge. How far has he come in that regard? As far as the defensive standout player, I'd have to go Tony Perkins because, although Joe Toussaint is a good defender, he is undersized. Tony Perkins, I think, can defend 2 or even 3 positions if necessary. And we'll see the floor more because of C.J. Frederick transferring on. And then again, dark horse is definitely Peyton Sanford. If he can be okay on defense, sounds like the kid's a hard worker. If he can be decent on defense, and I know I've said this before about other Iowa players, that he can have a huge role in Iowa's success this season. As far as my predictions, I'm not going to make a record prediction. I do think Iowa's a tournament team. I could see them getting in as like a 10 or 11 seed. Could see them missing out on the tournament and going to the NIT. Maybe that ends up happening. I sure hope not, because I think there's a lot of experience. Certainly Jordan Bohannon. I've never been the biggest Jordan Bohannon fan in the world. Appreciate what he's given to Iowa, but certainly don't want to see him end his career not making the tournament. I'm sure he came back, partly to be able to mend what was lost last year against Oregon in the tournament, and hopefully Iowa has an opportunity to do this. The good thing about this season, if you look at it from a broader standpoint, fans are disappointed about where this football season has turned, although it's not over. Again, they still got a chance to win the West, but this basketball season has an opportunity to be a bit of a distraction. And let's be honest, if you're Iowa, nobody's really counting on you to do anything. Again, I think the media picked Iowa like 10th in the Big Ten. This is an opportunity with there's no pressure on the shoulders of these kids. Go out there, prove the world wrong, and it's totally the opposite of what we saw last year. There was so much pressure on Iowa's team last year. This year you get crowds back at at Carver, which is great. So it's an opportunity for Iowa to prove a lot of people wrong. And I do want to throw this in here as well. In case you haven't been listening, we've been talking about this over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football for a while. But we've been talking about adding an Iowa basketball postgame show to our channel right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. That is happening. Okay, that is a go. We will have live Iowa basketball, Iowa men's basketball postgame shows right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. So as I always say, if you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now. Of course, it's free on YouTube to subscribe. Turn notifications on. And then after the Iowa basketball games, get ready to sound off with us, talk about the game. You can ask questions, comments, chats, and we'll be making an announcement in the coming hours, days, waiting on the green light to make this announcement, but we'll be making an announcement about a special analyst that we'll have throughout the season. Of course, throughout the football season, we've had Coach Don Patterson over at the other channel over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Don has been terrific. We are so happy to be able to be working with him with football, but again, we'll be making a special announcement as it relates to basketball here soon. So Iowa, Slippery Rock, what is it, 7:01? 7:01, Friday night, BTN Plus, and then Longwood, and I believe that's actually Tuesday, right? Tuesday night? I think I got that right. Tuesday night, 9 p.m. I think I said Monday earlier. Coming Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Longwood. That one will be on BTN. Thank you for listening to week 179 of Brada's Branded Thoughts and from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Again, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel here, please do so. Subscribe over to Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football for our continued breakdown of Iowa football. And again, stay tuned for a special announcement about our analysts coming for all Iowa basketball postgame shows this coming winter. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Go Hawks.